Here we go. People are hopping in.
Sweet. Shannon Miller.
Welcome, Shannon. And Shannon. All right.
Yeah.
We are recording, so I'm going to get started. For our folks that are hopping in, please feel free to use the QA feature to ask your questions. Today we have Jae from Games Hotline. Games Hotline is a resource for gamers to reach out when they are having a tough time. Jae is going to be talking about some mental health in esports. So thank you, everyone. If you have PlayVS specific questions, feel free to put them in. We'll sort through them. So go ahead and use that QA feature. All right, Jae, over to you.
Awesome. It's great to see y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me back again. I'm really excited to talk to y'all today. I'm going to try sharing my screen here. If it'll go. Share. Can y'all see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Let me get... Sorry, juggling too many things at once. All right. Awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to use this space to talk today a little bit about like non-judgmental listening and offering emotional support. I'm going to share a lot of the skills that we use on the hotline and share those with y'all so that for like any coach who kind of wants to offer a listening or supportive space during any type of conversation can have a more expanded tool belt. But before we get into that, a little bit about the Games Hotline and why I'm here and why I love talking about this thing is that, we're a free, confidential, text-based emotional support hotline for anyone who makes or plays games. We were entirely text-based, so to reach us, anyone just text support to 23368 from anywhere in the US. And during our open hours, a live agent who's ready, who's trained and ready to chat will be there to offer emotional support and resources if you need them. The Games Hotline was created specifically for the gaming community. Whether you're a player, developer, streamer, competitor, or a coach, any part of this community, we're here for you, whether that means offering emotional support or finding the referrals and resources that you need. So this is really our bread and butter of what we do and what we're really passionate about and what we think really makes a difference, not only to the individuals we talk to, but to greater gaming and esports culture in general. So yeah, I see quite a few folks jumped in since the start of this. So I'm really excited to share some skills that we use at the hotline to create safe and supportive spaces for anyone who texts in so that y'all can employ the same skills with your teams. Maybe whenever a student might come to you with something hard that they're experiencing, or when you want to start conversations with players in a way that is open and non-judgmental. So everything we do kind of revolves around three core skills. The first one being listening, which we see as kind of believing folks when they come to us, validating and honoring their experiences, as well as supporting, which involves reflection and offering options and resources. And finally, anchoring, which asks us to be transparent and to promote accountability in all of the emotional support spaces that we offer. This isn't kind of an order of things that you need to do. There's no kind of correct way to fit these together. It's really each of these skills in themselves really operates as an intervention. So if you have a conversation with someone who's looking for emotional support and all you do in that conversation is listen to them, you just believe what they say and you validate and honor their experiences, that in itself is a full intervention. It is a full a full way to emotionally support someone. And so when we like look at these 3 skills, we're really thinking about kind of expanding our tool belt. And that also comes with sometimes fighting the tendencies that we might have to kind of jump in and fix things immediately, or just like rush to offering solutions or telling people what they should do, because that can be sometimes really, really invalidating and not what we're actually looking for. And so the first one, of course, is listening. Again, that's believe, validate, and honor. When we listen to folks, it establishes a rapport and creates like a brave space where folks feel more open to share with you. It also allows you to express curiosity, right? This is when we're just listening, we can ask questions in a really open way that is about the experience that folks are sharing. Yeah. So the first part of this is believe, right? And when we talk about believing, we also want to keep in mind that people, especially people who experience harm, may not appear the way that you expect or want what you expect them to want. So this is a lot about kind of checking a lot of our assumptions at the door. And when someone comes to us with a hard thing that they've experienced or something that maybe hurt them, we need to make sure that we're not bringing our own assumptions in of how they should be responding, or if that really happened, how would they be reacting, or if that really happened, they should want to talk about it or they shouldn't want to talk about it, etc. We want to really take people as they are. And we also want to keep in mind that our culture conditions us to be suspicious of people who are harmed. And so when someone says that someone hurt them, or someone says that they've been harassed or abused or experienced something troubling at the hands of someone else, we need to make sure that we fully believe folks when they bring things to us, and not to be too suspicious because of kind of our cultural conditioning. And beyond all of that, we like it's so core to what the spaces that we try to create, to remember that it can make such a difference just to feel heard. And again, this in itself can be a full intervention and a full way to support someone, especially when folks, especially young folks like students, it might take a while for them to bring something up and to talk about something. And so it might be something that happened a long time ago, maybe months or even years ago. But when they are given a safe space to talk about it and they're believed, that in itself can be really, really life-changing. So some examples of like believing statements can just be, I believe you, or I'm grateful that you are sharing with me. This is a safe space to talk about whatever you want. I'm here to listen. And so again, that's like really holding like open spaces and really like putting our hearts first and believing folks with whatever they're bringing to us today. I'm keeping an eye on chat, and if anyone has any like questions on any parts of these tools, or has other examples of believing statements or anything like that, please put them in chat, and I'll try to catch them as we go. The next part of listening is to validate and honor folks. We are often taught to sort things kind of within a narrow frame of normal and abnormal. And so when we create a space that is validating and honoring of folks' experiences, we want to kind of like deconstruct those categories of there's really no wrong way to feel or experience what's happening. And of course, like always keeping in the back of our mind that we don't know someone's whole story and context, and we can't predict responses, timelines, triggers, and etc. Especially when someone's bringing kind of a harder conversation or a harder thing to you, maybe about mental health, maybe about something that's happening in their family, or even about something between them and their peers or their other teammates. There's often so many different moving parts. There's so many different parts of the story, and often so many things that the student you're talking to might not want to share. And so keeping a really validating and open space where we honor folks' experiences can really, really build a lot of safety into that conversation. And so some examples of validating statements are, wow, that sounds awful. You're not crazy. It's understandable to feel this way. I can see that this is important to you. And it shows a lot of maturity that you're being patient with them, or whatever type of scenario they're talking about. These all these statements really focus on kind of feelings, and they're not judgmental statements, right? Even if in a situation where a student or a player brings something to you that you might actually have judgments about, or you might really feel like what they did was wrong, or that like the things they're doing maybe aren't decisions you would make, or it feels kind of unfamiliar or strange to you. To really hold that with yourself, and center them by using these validating statements. There's also like a bit of normalization going on here as we're validating folks, to say that like there's really no wrong way. There's no such thing as like an overreaction or a wrong way to feel about something. And in fact, when we have those invalidations, that kind of exacerbates the feelings of like, something's wrong, and not in control, and stuff like that. So by validating that, like, hey, what you're feeling is okay, whatever it is, and I'm here to support you and to help you move through that feeling, not squash it and push it away, can be really, really incredibly powerful. So yeah, that's our first tool, listening. Our second tool is supporting. And so that involves reflection, offering options, and potentially resources. And so when we're supportive of folks, it establishes trust. It shows that we are present and here for them. And it also empowers them to make the best decision for themselves. This kind of goes back to the thing I said in the beginning about kind of that impulse that a lot of us have sometimes to jump in and like fix things, and like, all right, I'm here, I'm ready, like bring a solution and make this problem go away. The reality is that a lot of things that happen aren't that simple, and often that's not what folks are asking from us when they come to us looking for emotional support. And so when we're reflecting, reflecting refers to kind of like active listening is another way to say it. So as someone is telling you what's going on or what they're experiencing right now, we want to reflect back to them the things that they're saying, because it shows that we're like really engaged and that we really care about what they have to say and we're thinking about it, right? And so we want to remember that we're reflecting what you are hearing, not what you are feeling, right? And so this again goes back into that non-judgmental space of we're not reflecting like, oh, that's crazy, or that was wrong. This is reflecting like, hey, I'm hearing from you that that this was a really hard experience, or I'm hearing that this was really important to you, right? And reflection is also not analysis. This is not kind of bringing our own perspectives or opinions into things. This is just letting folks know that we're here. And so in doing that, you could say like, it sounds like you're feeling glad or sad or mad or scared or embarrassed. These are kind of like 5 like core feelings that we all have. You can also say something like, I'm hearing you use a lot of words like, betrayed, or whatever it might be. This this one's a great reflective statement because it can point something out about the way that this person is talking about their experience without adding a judgment, right? And it opens the door for the student to talk more about whatever it is that you're pointing out. And also, like, asking questions is also a part of reflecting. So I wonder what part of this experience feels most important to you. And the word important can be interchanged with a variety of things. Yeah. So that's reflecting. Another way that we can support folks is to offer options or resources. And so this is the part where we might like ask, hey, what do you need? And so when we do this, we want to keep in mind that exploring options does not mean being prescriptive or reactive. There is almost never a single way to resolve something or a single way to respond to something that's happening. And we want to make sure we're not prescriptive of like telling folks what they should do, or being reactive to, like, if we hear something that troubles us, to react to our own reaction, our own feeling of like, oh no, we need this to go away right now. Because remember, we don't have the full picture and the full story of what's going on. And because of that, we often can't predict some of the responses that someone might have, the timelines that people can do things on, and the things that might trigger something that could make things worse. So one example could be like, it might feel like, oh, we need to tell we need to tell parents right now, or we need to we need to alert some authorities right now, right? But without the whole story, that might not be that might not be the best choice in that moment. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about like navigating some of those conversations. But we want to really empower folks in coming to kind of their own decisions, with, of course, our support and like our support and guidance, right? And again, to remember that people don't always want a resource or solution. So I always encourage folks to really open with asks around consent, and to keep a lot of curiosity and ask a lot of open-ended questions. So that can kind of look something like, maybe after they've like kind of told you the story of what's going on, just asking them, what is the most urgent or important need you have right now? Saying something like, oops, I don't know what happened. I want to be here for you. What is the best way that I can help you? Or you're the one, or saying directly that you're the one who can make the best choice for you. So these can all feel like really empowering, and they can also open the floor for more information to come out. Maybe information that wasn't shared during another part of the conversation, by asking really open-ended questions and treating and giving the other person the respect that they respect around the fact that they have agency and they know the most about the situation, compared to anyone else, even compared to you. This can be really open, really supportive, and really empowering for folks. Does anyone have questions about that specifically? I can definitely come back to them if anyone does. I know that I'm going through these pretty quickly. And so our last skill is anchoring. And so this is about being transparent and promoting accountability, which is definitely a lifelong skill that I am learning. But when we're transparent and when we promote accountability, it establishes respect, and it also opens up space for more information. alongside honoring the dignity in everyone, and centering harm and standing with survivors. So, so the first part of this is being transparent. When we want to be transparent, we want to establish transparency early. Again, this is like building rapport and building kind of mutual respect and trust, and remembering not to make promises that you can't keep. This like really helps establish a safe space when we're honest with folks, and keeping in mind that like even when we're honest, even if it's maybe not the promise that they want to hear or not the answer that folks want to hear, it shows that you respect the other person, and it kind of gives you room to actually work together and coming towards like a place or a direction that works for both of y'all, or the person that you're supporting. And so sometimes that means being honest, saying that I don't have all the answers. I don't know what you should do, but I can help you find resources. Like, would you like help finding resources? If someone mentions something around their like own personal kind of safety or well-being, addressing it directly and like asking really open-ended questions, and having that conversation in a brave way, can look like, hey, you mentioned hurting yourself, which that is an okay thing to feel. Can I ask you a few questions about your safety, right? So this brings in that normalization again, to say that, hey, you're not a bad person for feeling this way, or even if you've already hurt yourself, that is an okay thing to experience, and I'm not judging you for it. But I still am like I care about you, and I want to ask you some questions about your safety. Is that okay? And so this kind of sets the stage for a really open and brave conversation with that person, without passing judgment or making it feel like this is a taboo topic or something wrong that they've done. And this last one's kind of about like those hard boundaries of like, hey, I want to support you, but maybe I also don't feel comfortable lying about a secret. Would you be open to working with me to come up with a way that we could tell X, maybe like a parent or an administrator together, or another peer, right? And so this again kind of gives you space to be honest about your own comfort zones, or even your own, like maybe within your own whatever role you're playing, you are not able to kind of keep information from people sometimes. And so being transparent about that really conveys respect to the other person, and again it gives them an opportunity to work with you in order to come up with a direction or a path forward that feels good for everyone. And so the final part of anchoring is promoting accountability. So when we promote accountability, it creates a harm-centered environment, and ultimately this changes our culture. When we think about like toxicity and harassment, especially in games, it's like it's such an ecosystem, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But we want to kind of fight against some of the like normalizations around toxicity and harm causing that we see in our culture today. And so when we promote accountability, this is like a small act of actively pushing against that culture. And so remember, it's not about arguing, it's about stating your values. And when we align with people who are harmed, it's not just supportive, it shifts our norms. And this is true whether we're talking to someone about a situation in which they experience harm, or when they are the person who caused that harm, right? We're promoting accountability either way. And when we do that, it shows that like everyone, again, has dignity and is deserving of support. So some examples of this can be saying it's not your fault if it was someone who experienced harm. It can be saying, reminding them that the only person responsible for what happened is the person who chose to do this to you. Or if they are the person who said something or caused harm to another person, saying like, learning we've hurt someone can be such a painful and conflicting experience, and it's totally normal to distance ourselves or not believe. So this is kind of on that other end of like normalizing this reaction to hearing that we've caused harm, right? Like it's really normal to feel like that, because that doesn't align with our own image of who we are. We don't want to believe it. Or it's normal to feel defensive or angry even that happened. And we can have that conversation, and we can normalize that feeling, and we can be there and support them again while still promoting accountability and knowing that, like, causing harm is wrong. And this kind of also goes along with, like, if someone is talking about an experience where they caused harm or they did something that was considered harassment or toxic, we want to be there to hear them and to give them space for support. So we could say something like, hey, I hear your intentions and perspective, but especially if they use language that is kind of perpetuating norms around toxicity or even oppression, to like kind of stand again with like center that harm that was caused and say, hey, I hear you, I'm here to support you, but Jenny experienced that as harm. So there's a lot of different ways that we can promote accountability in little ways, while also remembering that all of these things happen in an ecosystem. There's a saying that, like, when people, everyone's first experience of violence is never by causing it, right? So we all witness and see and experience violence or harm or toxicity in some way, and our first experiences with that are almost never enacting it ourselves, right? We always see it or feel it first, and that's true for everyone. So we want to be really like cognizant of kind of that ecosystem and those cycles. So like I've been saying already, this all happens in an ecosystem, right? So there's the part of experiencing harm, there's the part of being a bystander to or witnessing harm, and then there's the part of causing harm. And so it's really, really easy to kind of label people or put people into buckets, or kind of brand them with a label forever. There's such a tendency to do that in our society, and that's a really normal reaction, right? Because violence and harm and toxicity, it's hard to reckon with. But in reality, there are often no concrete dividers between these categories. And we're all of us, right? Each of us, so much more than the worst things we've ever done. And so we want to keep that in mind whenever we're talking to folks, and creating open spaces where people can talk about some harm they've experienced, or harassment that they are seeing or witnessing, or even toxicity or harassment that they've caused, because that's also like a complex, and it's a complex experience that comes with a lot of its own feelings and nuances. So going in order of those, when we want to support targets, victims, or survivors, basically people who are experiencing harm, harassment, or toxicity, we again want to listen. We want to believe them, because remember, that can be just a really radical act in itself. Reminding them that it's not your fault, while also normalizing the internalization of blame. When something bad happens to us or when something hurtful happens to us, it's really, really easy and such a natural reaction to scrutinize all the things that we've done wrong. Like, oh, well, maybe if I hadn't done this, or maybe if I had, done this better, or if I, this person always gets onto me on this, maybe if I hadn't, just made that mistake again, like he wouldn't have hit me or something like that, or yelled at me, whatever it is. You want to be there to help assess the safety and risks of the situation, if there are like safety or risk concerns. And while we're doing that, we want to restate a trust in this other person's agency to make their own self-assessment, right? And so if they're feeling like something is not a risk, or they're feeling like something is not unsafe, we also want to trust that coming from them. And then finally, provide resources by offering information and options in an open and inviting space for them, without like kind of telling them what to do. That can, with the intention of trying to like create more like kind of directions forward for them, and choices that they can make for themselves. When we're talking to bystanders, it is kind of like a different type of conversation. Again, we want to really listen. We want to normalize that like vicarious and secondary trauma is real. So even if you are not the target of harassment or toxicity or even abuse, witnessing it, in a game or in a peer group or anywhere else can have a real effect on you, especially if it's also something you maybe have experienced yourself. Witnessing that harm can be really impactful. So we want to make space and offer support for that. We can offer information and resources about kind of more information about these behaviors, so that they can be kind of have that information to better understand what's happening, even just as they're witnessing it. And so that might be about, controlling behaviors. It might be about accountability, or it could be about bystander power. If like they're looking for something, they feel powerless and they don't know what to do, but they see this happening and it's uncomfortable and hurtful, and they want to help but don't know how. Offering kind of some resources around bystander intervention can be really empowering. And also, it's important to encourage respect for the target, or the person who is being harmed, their boundaries and needs, right? And so kind of a question you could ask is like, who else is available to help you process this, right? So the bystander is not then going to the victim or the target and requiring them to do like emotional support for them about their own feelings, or asking kind of who else or what other systems exist that can center the target and ensure that their boundaries and needs are centered, right? So working with the bystander to kind of try to reach and fill the needs of the person who's being affected. And then finally, people who are like engaging in harming behaviors. Again, of course, we want to listen and like offer like really open space for them to talk about their experiences. We can say something like, thank you so much for trusting me and sharing with me. When folks open up and talk about this, it is actually incredibly vulnerable and really powerful for them to even be like talking and sharing about these things. So we really, really want to honor that. We want to normalize their actions and can remind them, saying something like, causing harm doesn't make you a bad person. We always have an opportunity to repair the harm done, right? And so this, again, extends that non-judgmental listening and space to people who have caused harm or done things that they regret. We can also, again, provide information and resources about respectful versus controlling behaviors. We can give them information or resources about accountability and help them kind of learn through this experience, what it looks like to repair harm, what it looks like to kind of understand their own behaviors a little better, and what it looks like to hold accountability in themselves. And in this, we again also want to encourage respect for the target or the person who was harmed, their boundaries and needs. So asking to the person who caused harm, who else is available to help you process this, right? So not so that the person who caused the harm doesn't go to the person they've harmed and dump all these feelings, right, that are very valid and deserve support, but the victim or the target themselves maybe shouldn't be the one to have to process that for them. And then also working too with the person who caused harm to find, who else or what other systems exist that can center the target, victim, or survivor and ensure that their boundaries and needs are centered. So throughout all of this, it's a lot of like asking really, really open questions and creating non-judgmental space while being really active in the way that we listen and validate folks who come to us for support. So as like kind of a few wrap-up reminders, when we're providing emotional support, we want to remember that it's okay to have conversations without problem solving. It's okay to listen, even as someone just talks in circles. It might feel like you didn't really get anywhere, or that you weren't able to offer any solutions, or you weren't able to really do anything for them. Sometimes people just want a space where they feel like they're free to talk. And sometimes what comes out kind of sounds like circles to us, right? But that's not necessarily how they experienced it. And again, it's okay to not offer a resource or solution. It really is enough just to be present for someone in their time of need. Just doing that, that's enough. It's not okay to tell people how they should feel. It's not okay to make character statements. So we want to avoid making statements along the lines of like, you're being too sensitive, or you're overreacting, or you're acting kind of crazy. We don't want to say things like that. Similarly, especially if these are people we know well, it can sometimes be frustrating to see themselves kind of repeat patterns of behavior that get them into trouble. But we still, during our emotional support space, we want to avoid making character statements along the lines of, you always get yourself into these types of situations, or you always act like this when this happens, and passing judgment in that way. It's also not okay to intentionally push folks outside of their comfort zones without consent. Especially if we see what we might consider like an easy solution or easy thing that like they could just do and this could be done. Maybe if that isn't something that they are ready to do, we don't want to like push them really hard without their consent, and there's ways to engage in that conversation, to ask like, hey, like, I wonder if you could talk to someone else about this, or I wonder if you could ask this person or talk to them directly about what happened. Maybe they don't feel ready about it, but then the conversation could be, what do you need to feel ready for that? Like, what would make you feel, what's something that maybe could make you feel a little bit more confident about something that you maybe feel too scared to do in this moment, right? And also, it's not okay to support or validate the use of hostile or oppressive language. So if someone is, especially someone who has caused harm, if while they are talking to you, they use name calling, or they talk about what happened in kind of a hostile way, or kind of like a victim blaming way, or if they use kind of oppressive language in describing their experiences, we want to be supportive and validating of them and what they're feeling, but we don't want to support or validate the use of that language or the way that narrative is framed, right? And so that kind of goes back to the like, hey, like, I totally hear, what you're experiencing. That sounds like a lot to deal with all at once. But Jenny experienced that as harm, as just one example. So yeah, and as like an alternative resource, like as you're having these conversations, I want to ask y'all to kind of keep the Games and Online Harassment Hotline in mind. Again, we're confidential with the option to be totally anonymous. Folks come and they share only what they want to share. It's totally free. It's text message based. and we offer emotional support from trained crisis counselors who are well-versed in not only mental health and kind of crisis support, they're also like culturally competent in games, and they're knowledgeable about like the gaming world, the esports world, and everything that kind of goes on in there, or at least just it won't be somewhere where you have to like explain what you're going through in terms on the gaming side. We can just kind of focus on we already get that. We can just kind of focus on like the emotional support that you need. And so if folks are feeling like they want kind of a more anonymous, like third party place to talk, or they maybe aren't ready yet to tell you, their coach, what happened, but you're noticing that, they're needing someone to talk to, or they're going through kind of like an emotionally or mental health wise, like a hard time, offer the Games Hotline as a resource to them. And we can kind of be almost like a first step or even a middle step of like kind of unconditional emotional support that's like just available and there for their feelings. We won't like, it's fully confidential, so we won't report back to you. We won't report back to anyone else. And so a great way to do that is to add us to your resource lists if you haven't already. I meant to add more of our like contact information in here, but I'll drop them in chat. Our website is gameshotline.org. And again, our number is 23368, and you just text support and you'll be connected. And just let your colleagues and students know that we're here for them. We're here for anyone who makes games, who plays games, or who is kind of in and around the games and esports kind of world. So for coaches, for y'all, we're here for you. For your players, we're here for them. Sometimes like just kind of the impact that hotlines have can be that like just knowing that we exist, just knowing that there's a hotline out there where folks are wanting to support them around their experiences in mental health or harassment. Just knowing that we exist can make a really big difference in and of itself, even if they don't access it ever or in this moment, right? Like it just kind of knowing that exists, and knowing that there's folks out there who want to be supportive and want to change things in the culture, can make a really big impact on folks' like mental health and stuff. So yeah, that's all I had. Thanks for letting me go over time a little bit. Let me know if y'all have any questions, and I'll stick around to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Jae. We really appreciate it. We did have a question. It didn't pop up at chat, but a coach submitted it previously. I don't know if it's your expertise, but they asked about gaming addiction and any resources they could give to parents who are concerned about gaming addiction.
Yeah. Oh, gaming addiction is definitely a really like complicated and nuanced topic, right? I'm sure we all know that. Being here, I think I just turned my video on. I'm not sure. So yeah, especially talking to parents, that I think is a multifaceted approach. So I would say one, like to kind of approach the topic kind of generally first, right? To think about like what is gaming addiction actually, right? Like and ask them really openly kind of what these parents' concerns are around addiction, because as we know, like as like gamers and folks in esports, unlike some other addictions like substance abuse, for example, with like alcohol, like the amount of alcohol you're taking in can be a red flag for addiction. There's not quite a parallel in games in that like the amount of games you play don't necessarily equate to addiction, right? There's professional like esports athletes who practice for 8 hours a day and then stream for 5 hours afterwards, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're addicted to games, right? So I think like clearing up some misconceptions around like addiction can be like really helpful at first. I think like one, there's like a lot of really great resources around like games addiction out there too, but kind of identifying some of the like problematic parts of play can be helpful with parents and also with players. So if folks are playing a lot but not having fun with it, right? If you're playing, you're not feeling fulfilled, and you want to stop but you can't, or you're playing as a way like your relationship to the game has like really changed. Often sometimes this goes hand in hand with other mental health experiences that are happening, of like maybe games used to be this like great thing that like it was such a great escape for me, and I made so many friends, and I it was something that was really fulfilling, and it felt like a really great sense of accomplishment for me. But now, maybe because of something that's happening, or maybe because of just my relationship with games has changed, I play it and it doesn't feel good. I instead of being a place to connect with my friends, I now ignore all of my friends and just play and have kind of a miserable time of it. I would say like those are kind of more the red flags to look out for, rather than the like, oh, my kid is playing like 5 hours at a time, I'm worried that that's addiction, right? And so if you are seeing some of those other kind of mental health impacts and problematic parts of play, like those definitely are worth kind of diving into and offering support around, of like, hey, like we're, like any addiction, addictions don't just like happen by themselves. They often have like a more root cause. And so like kind of exploring that and like offering non-judgmental support again for folks and for players, and as well as parents, can be really helpful. Do you feel like that answers the question? It's a really nuanced and sensitive topic for a lot of
It
gamers, I
is.
know.
I think that using some of the statements that you provided when listening
Mhm.
to the parents, because I think a lot of parents have misconceptions, like you said, and
Yeah,
just general concerns. So taking that same non-judgmental approach will help really get to the root of the cause of their concern. Um,
right.
it might not be anything that's actually happening, and it's just something that they're like um, judging on and trying to make sure that
Mhm.
their kid doesn't get there.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
can
I mean,
definitely have more information later, because
yeah.
like you said, it's a very big and heavy topic.
Yeah, and there's definitely, and again, because like the amount of games you play doesn't like determine addiction. There's nothing that shows or says that like the longer you play games, the more likely you're being the more likely you're going to be addicted, or the more games you play, the more likely you are to become addicted. Games addiction is a real experience, and a lot of folks have experienced it and also recovered. But like it's yeah, that link between like, oh no, my kid's playing a lot is not necessarily like a symptomatic part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
didn't see any other questions. You did such a great job. I really appreciate it. We'll be sending out some of those resources afterwards, and also a certificate for the people who joined us today. Just giving one last call for any questions for Jay about mental health and esports and helping your players.
Hey, that was awesome. Thank you so much. So it's just like I think it's a really important space to talk about mental health, and I think gamers generally, this is very much a generalization, but I think people like to kind of keep it in a little bit, and
Yeah.
it's not the most talkative social environment sometimes. So appreciate you.
Yeah. I really wanted to bring some like kind of concrete tools to the coaches and stuff to create like supportive mental health spaces.
Yep,
I'm
especially nowadays. I think with everything
Mhm.
that's going on right now, gaming, like you said, addiction, there's a very like gray area with what that is. A kid playing 8 hours a day is not necessarily addicted to a game. But you have to look for the troubling signs of what
Mhm.
addiction is rather than him just playing for 8 hours a day. But I
Right.
think right now, with this being like such a resource for people to connect and play together with everything that's going on in the world, that makes it even more gray of an area
Yeah,
um, to determine right now.
it's a good point, because it's such a, it's so easy to just slip in. We're all home all the
Yep.
time. Awesome. Awesome.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we will let you go, Jay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. And we will focus more on play versus questions that have popped up. So, all right. So, Billy, I think you have access to share your screen. We're going to
Yes.
discuss playoffs for a moment.
Got a little thank you. Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
thank you,
I'll hop
Jay.
in. I think that was fantastic, Jay. Thanks so much. I think, first off, I'd like to just introduce Matt and I. We are new account managers here at Play Versus. It's a brand new role. In the past, support has been a little bit linear with how you've reached out. If you have some sort of issue, you email support@playversus.com, and then your problem generally gets solved, and sometimes it doesn't, and there's really nowhere else to go. So as we continue to grow, we're thinking about how we can grow our support, and the natural next evolution of things is through an account manager program. So we are kind of delineating between, dividing up all of our schools and giving them to different account managers. I'm taking a group, Matt is taking a group, and we also have Bonnie as well as Bernabe supporting us. So there are 4 account managers. Everyone should have access or have heard from one of their account manager or from their account manager by now. And so that's who we are. That's why we exist. For me personally, I've been at the company for over a year. I've bounced around from support to operations on college and high school, and even more on the salesier type side at times. So certainly I have a good idea of how the company flows, and I know the rest of us all do too. Matt, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to say a little something about yourself, and then we can kind of get into like some more playoff stuff and tangible stuff.
Cool. So my name's Matt. I've been here now. It's going on 4 months. Super excited for my new position. Like Billy said, we're transitioning over from a more linear approach where you would submit a ticket and maybe one day you'd get Billy to answer one, and the next day I would answer one, and we'd give you 2 completely different answers on the same exact question. So right now it's more of we wanted to be a more personal approach so that you guys know I'm your guy to go to. If you're one of my coaches, I'm your guy to go to for any answers that you may have. Feel free to always reach out if you have any questions, anything like that. And we'll be able to provide a less transactional approach to customer care with you guys. That way we can build rapport and have a relationship with you guys each individually.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I'm looking very much forward to actually building these relationships out and hopefully, in a really meaningful way with all of my coaches, which hopefully, I've done it a bit in the past, but now we get to make a little bit more of a concerted effort. Yep. So I just want to flag one document. We have a whole awesome help center, largely thanks to Melanie actually for setting this up almost a year ago now. But we have plenty of different documents for various various topics within PlayVersus and within our ecosystem, whether it's how to build your teams, whether it's how to enroll, whether it's what is the season schedule for a specific game. This specific coach resource that I'm going to flag here is a high school playoff resource. And just heading down, I mean, really, this is just some basic copy as to what we're looking at. Thanks to Charlene for putting this together. Really, what we're seeing is all of the different leagues, which esports they are, participating in or facilitating, and then the number of teams that have made the playoff, as well as the number of rounds that playoff is going to hold. And so as we can see, various leagues have different sizes, and the reason that is the case is because various leagues have different sizes. So the playoff size is largely dependent on the number of teams in the actual league. Somewhere between 30 and 50% of the league make the playoffs. And if any coach has a specific question about one of these leagues, they're welcome to check out the doc themselves. I'll post a little link right here. Let me find out where I post that. I suppose I can do that in the chat, right? Mark says, what is being done to reach out to state level leaders to promote and inform them of the new console offerings that are coming for spring 2021? That's a great question, Mark. So we actually are in communication with all of our state partners. We don't technically have a relationship with every single state, but the ones that we do, we keep very closely in the loop with new games that we're releasing. We've had hiccups in the past where that was not as tightly done, and so this is our attempts to bring them on as real partners and make sure that they're aware. So they do know that Madden and FIFA are games that we're offering, and they are well aware. Hopefully, from their end, that means that they're messaging that same thing out to coaches and letting them know, hey, this is a new offering that PlayVS has and is an option for you. Heading a little bit further down, we see kind of the scheduling. This is going to be around the actual dates that rounds will be played. So every single league's playoff is going to start on the same date, and depending on how many rounds the league has based on the size of the playoff, it could extend out all the way to the 19th, for example. But we're trying to keep this as condensed as possible. And worth noting, this final round, whatever the last round in this box would be, that's going to be the championship, where the times may vary. But one thing that's worth calling out is the rest of the rounds should be around that same 4 p.m. local time that you are used to. And that really covers kind of the high school playoffs. So hopefully, you can look up your specific league, you can get all the information that you need, pass it over and cascade that to your teams. And then from there, we're just hoping to have a smooth playoff. I don't have a whole lot else to add, Melanie. I'm happy to chime in. If any of the coaches have questions, feel free to reach out. But you should have your account manager as well, so that should be a great resource for you. And awesome.
Okay, I have 2 questions that
Yes.
came up. If they don't know who their account manager is, who do they reach out to find out?
That's a great question. They can reach out to me. My email is billy@playversus.com. And I'll also leave that as a chat. Let's do that.
And is email the best way to reach their account manager?
It definitely depends on not only the account manager, but also just your preference. The account manager should be reachable by phone, by text, by email, and more. So hopefully that's helpful.
Okay, they should have been contacted by their account manager with the best way to get in touch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely true.
And then we had some questions that popped up about teams and tournaments. So in the playoff tournament, can one of y'all address, like, when is it one team, when is it multiple teams?
So the only time it's one team in the playoffs per school is when it's a state league. State leagues only allows one team per school per playoff. As far as for regional leagues, you can have as many teams as you'd like registered to your school, and however many teams make playoffs in that matter will make playoffs. It's not just like one regional team per school per playoff. So if you have 3 teams that are doing well, they will make the playoffs altogether.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is different from seasons past, so
yes,
worth noting for sure. Awesome. I left my email in the chat for anyone wondering. One more time, it's billy@playversus.com. Happy to answer kind of basic line questions and then also direct you to your account manager, as we have a kind of master list.
Excellent, thank you. I don't think we have any more questions. This is kind of your last minute or two to ask us questions. I do want to put some shameless plugs in while you are still here. We have a workshop tomorrow. We have a collegiate coach that used to be an amateur esports coach, Ronnie Etner, and he is going to be doing an interactive workshop with League of Legends skill building and drills. So please join us, see what he does for his League of Legends practices, ask him your questions. This is one of those few times you get to interact with people that have actually been on the inside of professional or amateur play. And then on Fridays, if you are a fan of Among Us, we will be streaming, looking for a couple more coaches or collegiate players to join us. So let me know if you want to come play. We'll start around 4 p.m. Pacific time. And it's just, we're going to be on Twitch and having a good time. And yeah, it's just a fun little stream for a few coaches and players that want to get together. Collegiate players.
I might have to hop in there.
Yes, please do. If you don't want to play, you can still hop in chat. Oh, we just got another question.
Oh, sweet. Our state is very heavily dominated by PC, but I feel like a lot of schools would like to launch a program for the spring, especially because of the continued cancellation of other sports seasons, but are hesitant because of the PC-based startup cost and or techie-driven culture of early programs. Please make sure to hit up those state level leaders and let them know that esports are within reach for any school. That's a really great call out, Mark. For us personally, one of the things that I know we've been pushing in the past is alternative ways to get into or get computers into schools. And for example, I've had programs go and actually strike up some sort of agreement with a local college, an internet cafe, what have you, that allows them to play during the times where they know they have matches. And that's just one great way that schools without they can't front that initial brunt of computer costs will be able to still play esports and participate. But I certainly will flag that for the PlayVS members that are communicating with our state partners. It looks like we have another one that came in. We need 20 schools before our state will offer a state championship. Mark, what state? Then I'll go harp on that state for sure. Maine. Awesome. I will absolutely take note and then reach out to Lane, who's actually doing a lot of our partnerships. She's been fantastic. Yeah, that really kind of covers it. On the shameless plug topic, I've been running a program called Match of the Week, where high schools that have actually been streaming and have students who broadcast, shoutcast, and all of the above would like some more exposure. They're welcome to stream straight from the PlayVS Twitch channel. So if you're interested, I will leave a link to the Match of the Week application down below. So let me.
Oh, that's great to know. I was wondering how they got in.
It got in there. Yeah, it's super easy. The application's simple, and then we just kind of go through and hand select the schools based on shoutcasters, how soon it's kind of first come first serve at this point. I will throw that into the bottom, and then I'll also Slack you that, Melanie, just so you have it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is for League of Legends and Rocket League. Is it for other?
We are actually hoping to do all of our games. We're working with college who takes up some days as well. And so if you're really interested in doing a different game that is not Rocket League or League of Legends, we'll try and fit you in. We just gotta do some finagling and finessing, some lobbying of Zach Snyder and the college team.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Billy and Matt. I'm going to end this for now. We can hang out if anybody else has questions, but we will no longer have the recording going. Thank you and
Awesome.
Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mark. Hey, Mark, if you're interested, send me an email and we can chat a little bit